Hello, everybody. My name is Samantha Luzzi, and I will be your child's sixth grade teacher this year. I am very excited to meet your kids and really excited for the school year. I've created this video to give you, the parents, some insight into how I will teach math, what tools or strategies I will use, what standards I will be addressing, and how I will communicate these methods with you. I hope this video is helpful to you and answers some of your questions. Before I start, here's my contact information. If at any point you have comments, questions, or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. I am on my computer and phone often, and I'm always willing to help you out in any way. Now that we have that all squared away, let's get started. There have been a lot of debate recently about something you may have heard of called the Common Core. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with this, Common Core is a set of goals or standards for students in the areas of English and math. Basically, these are guidelines of what your students should know at the end of each grade in order to prepare them for college. There's been a lot of criticism for this new initiative in recent years, most specifically in math. One often cited is that parents don't understand the problems or why they're even doing these certain problems. For those of you who feel this way, I get it, I do. It's troubling when your child comes home and you can't help them because you don't understand the math yourself, but bear with me. I'm going to take a minute to explain to you why Common Core is actually a really useful thing. When I was learning math, we were given a problem, the steps to solve it, practice it about 50 different times, and we got an answer. If you got the right answer, great. If you didn't, you went back to another problem and repeated the same process again. Does this sound familiar to you? The way math was taught to you or me was often very procedural. While this does produce results and good taskmasters, it doesn't exactly encourage thinking and understanding. Common Core is striving to change that. How children learn math through Common Core is rooted in more conceptual understanding. Instead of being given the procedure or standard algorithms as we knew them, they learn why the procedures work and how to use them in different strategies to get the same answer. This helps students learn and develop flexible thinking. They can go about one problem in 5 different ways, depending on who you are. So all those problems you've seen on Facebook that have parents frustrated, more than likely are making students think about why the procedure works rather than just generating an answer. So you may be thinking, that's great, but how am I supposed to help my kid with math if I don't understand it? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Your 6th grader will actually be working with the standard algorithm a lot this year, so you shouldn't see too many new strategies from me. If they do learn a different strategy, your kids will be provided with a QR code or a link to a video that you can watch. I will make them all myself, so you'll know that you'll be on the same page as your kids. And if that doesn't quite explain it for you, or you'd like to talk to me about something, I'll be available for meetings via Skype or Google Hangout, typically from 5 to 8 o'clock at night. If I'm not, I'll let you know, but that's generally how I will communicate with you. Now that we've talked about Common Core and how it affects you, let's discuss what your kids will be learning this year in my classroom. 6th grade is an exciting time for them, and in math, we have a smaller amount of topics to cover, which is great because that means we can really dig into these topics and make sure everybody understands before moving on. Your students will be covering ratios and proportional relationships, probability and distributions, independent and dependent variables, rational numbers and fractions, finding the area, surface area, and volume of objects, and using equations and inequalities. Now, this seems like a lot, but don't panic. I'm going to take a second to break these down for you and talk about what we will generally learn in the class. We'll talk about number sense. This builds directly on the basic skills they learn in elementary school: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, and decimals. But now it's more complex. We're asking questions like, does a fraction translate into decimals? Why do we call multiplication and division inverse operations? This is also a time when we'll be introducing negative numbers, which can be tricky for kids. You have problems like, yes, you can borrow $10 from me to afford that toy, but that means your account will go negative $10. Or we'll be using examples like temperature. and figuring out the difference between 20 degrees and negative 10 degrees from one day to the next. Very valuable in our range of the country. And we'll be using other examples like maybe elevation, figuring out the difference in elevation between a city and 10 feet under the sea level. Things like that. We'll be talking about algebra. And you may be thinking, algebra in 6th grade? We're actually encouraged to teach our kids basic algebra starting in 6th grade, which is crazy, but that's what we do. But they'll be basic, like problems like your parents will have a 5-mile trip to go to the store to get shoes. You will be traveling about 15 miles an hour. How fast will it take you to get there? Basic algebra. Your kids will be thinking about those shoes, but the thinking process they'll be using is completely algebraic. We'll be talking about geometry, angles, quadrilaterals, and volume. Don't be surprised to see your 6th grader finding the area of a 3-dimensional shape. For many kids, geometrical thinking is a highlight. Why? Because it easily lends itself to hands-on exploration, which is so great, and it also ties really well into art, which I think is super awesome. We'll also be talking about statistics and probability. At this stage, it'll be more simple. So coin tossing, die rolling, but people will love this because it involves and ties in really well with sports and finding statistics on baseball averages, things like that. So sports kids will be in love with this topic. And the major thing for me will be reasoning, problem solving, and connections. This is the highlight of my year. It is important to get the right answer to a problem. Yeah, it is. But it's so more crucial to know why you can get that answer and how you can think your way to it, using different methods, sometimes 2 or 3, again and again and again. Now, let's talk about the actual class structure. As my math class is at the beginning of the school day, I am going to establish a routine with the students that will be engaging and help them get their minds ready for the school day. Every morning, I will have a problem from Estimate 180 on the smartboard. Estimate 180 is a website that gives students a picture and asks them to make estimates about it. For instance, I might show them a picture of a man standing in front of a fence. The students will be asked, how tall is this man? Students reason out and justify their answer, which is great because there is no wrong answer. They just justify their response. Awesome ways to apply math concepts and thinking in a fun and engaging way. We'll also be using Math Talk in my classroom. I'll be focusing on asking students to justify their choices they make while solving a problem. For instance, why they decided to multiply instead of divide, or why they factored a number in a certain way. This will help students develop that conceptual understanding I mentioned earlier. Making them explain why they did something takes more understanding than just executing an equation. After we finish up this section, I will introduce the learning target for the day. The learning target will tell students what they will be able to do by the end of the class. For instance, I will be able to multiply 4-digit numbers. This will set a clear expectation at the beginning of the class period. I will then work through 2 or 3 problems with the class, again, focusing on having them discuss why we're doing certain things. Once we have everything in the class, I will then divide the students into groups or have them work on it individually, depending on what we're covering, and they'll work on about 5 or 10 problems. They'll show the work that they do so I can focus on why they're doing certain things, and then I will bring the whole class together as a group and we can discuss the different ways they solve these problems. After this, students will have some time to edit their work, finish problems, work together and ask questions, or explore some supplemental activities. The supplemental activities I will make available to students will be forms of adaptive learning technology. Our school doesn't have access to costlier programs like Dreambox or IXL, but we can use Khan Academy. Khan Academy is a free website that offers practice exercises, instructional videos, and personalized learning to help students work at their own pace. When students get done with their work or need extra help with a topic, I will let them go to Khan Academy to get supplemental instruction on that topic that they're struggling with, or they can even explore different things if they need to be challenged. Now, as far as testing goes, many of my assessments will be based more on, again, how they did the problem than if they got the right answer. As such, I'll be focusing a lot on the work they hand in to me. There will be tests, but there will also be discussions and written responses for assessment purposes. I will tell you right now that I am not a big fan of math homework. I never have been. Because of this, the homework I will assign will be minimal. I might give students a lecture or a video to watch outside of class, but not very much actual packets or worksheets. When I do assign homework, because I will, it's minimal, not non-existent, I will provide resources for you so you can learn with your kids and understand the problems as well. And as far as communicating with you, I'm going to use several different things. I'll use Seesaw and Remind. Seesaw is an app that allows me to archive student work into one area. This app is great because there is a parent section which allows you to see what your child has been doing in my class. I will also use Remind, which is a text-based app. You give me your phone number, I send you a text, and you agree to it, and then I can text you updates. It's really simple, and it's free. I won't use it willy-nilly either. I will send you important things like big projects or days I'll be gone. And I know I'm using a lot of technology. If you don't have internet at home or a computer or phone, you need to let me know. I really want to work with you to find something that works. If I need to send you a newsletter or emails or call you, please let me know. I want to make sure you're involved and you know what's happening in my class. Are there any questions? I know we've covered a lot, but opening up the floor now. All right, that was a good question. The question was, what technology will you be using? We were lucky enough this year to get enough iPads to become one-to-one, so each student has their own iPad. We'll be using those quite often, as well as a number of different iPad apps in the classroom for them to work on. There's a number line app so they can manipulate different things. There is Math Pizza, a lot of fun games that they can use that involve math thinking. We also have a smart board, which is like an interactive whiteboard, and they'll be able to use that for assignments throughout the year. However, I will not let students use phones in my classroom unless I give them permission or you let me know they'll need them that day. I don't really want that distraction. So we will be using iPads, iPad apps, the smart board, and Khan Academy, which I mentioned earlier. Any other questions? All right, this is a great question. Do they get to use calculators? I don't believe that our students should be operating in a vacuum. They will most likely have access to calculators when they need it. That being said, a big focus in my class is understanding why math works a certain way. So until I believe a student understands that process, they will be working out that math. So if your child comes home with a problem and they don't have a calculator or they tell you they're not supposed to use it, please respect that. I do have a method to what I'm doing. There is a reason they aren't using a calculator. They will eventually get to that point, but until I think they're ready, they will not be using a calculator. All right, here is my contact information one more time. I just want to thank everybody for sticking with me throughout this video. I really, really hope this helps a little bit. Again, if you need to contact me, please use any of this information. And I'm really excited to get to know your kids and excited for the class. Thanks again for listening.